Hey gang, Kevin, Life22. Excuse me. So we've got a couple unofficial, I always call them the unofficial sponsors of the show. So it's one of our regulars, Tony down at Allegheny Redemption's got these blue and oranges for $6.99 a case, and it's bottles, and they're not horrible. So thank you, Tony. And then it's cold and flu season, so if you're not accustomed to it, we always recommend a little Easy Jesus, the E&J Ernest and Hudio brand brandy, family owned and operated out of California. I can't remember exactly where. Did a term paper on them in college. Corporate liquor versus corporate alcohol versus alcohol owned by local families. Did a business paper on them. So we always loved our Easy Jesus. So anyways, I just want to chit chat with you guys. Tomorrow I'll be doing a podcast for the beginning of February, so stay tuned for that. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe below. But, so we've got some issues on Facebook. A lot of people are concerned and curious about the issues of the old Statler building burnt down. And there's the notorious Linda, the landlord that everyone knows to love. So what happened is the building burnt down, and the fire department has released the scene back to the owner of the property. Now, in the past, with certain other properties, we didn't release the scene. We considered them hazardous and unsafe to even leave up for a short period of time, and we tore them down. The fallacy to that route is you tear them down instantly, and we can put mechanic's lien through the court system on the building. And then what happens with a mechanic's lien on the building is that the building, once the vacant lot goes to taxes, because it's not worth anything, right? There's like a $10,000 to $30,000 lien on it, and the county treats it like a bank. All bank liens and judgments and things like that just get wiped by the higher entity, which is the county, because they're foreclosing on it. At which point the city's lien gets wiped off, unreimbursed by the county, because it's not a tax. They're not obligated to pay us for it. Rightfully so, they're not going to make $30,000 on a vacant lot at tax auction, so, I mean, it's one entity watching its own ass. And you get it, right? Like, it's, so we tore down the other previous Linda property, and there was a lien put on it, and it got wiped. And somebody else bought it, or whatever. What's going to happen with this one is that code enforcement immediately served her with a 10-day notice. We have to give her 10 days. It's the right to start a remedy, which it's the order to remove and clean up the site. And she has 10 days to comply. If she doesn't, we then, or even show signs of it, we can then have the authority to demolish it as an unsafe structure on her behalf. At which point, we do front the cost, like we would with any other unsafe property, front the cost of demolishing it and removing it from the site. But the beauty of that is we can actually go after, because we'd be able to go after her personally, not just put a mechanic's lien on the building. This would be like a small court case proceedings, where it would actually, a small claims court sort of thing. If you do courts much, you got mechanic's liens, you don't have to go to court for it. You don't have to get a judgment. And it's only for the property that you did work on or what have you. That's the intent of a mechanic's lien. Contractors can put mechanic's liens on it, things like that. You can, with this, you actually get a personal judgment against the individual who owns the property. And what would happen is, and she doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, it's, there's no, so we would go after her and get a judgment against her personally. And then what would happen is any assets that she has, we could put liens on every building she owns. We could force a sheriff's sale because it's not her primary residence, and then we could sell those properties. I hunt down a lot of debts for myself, being a landlord and having deadbeat clients and being in the construction industry and having, and I've only had like one or two of those in the construction industry, but the tenant industry is always a brutal one. But I've learned almost all of this from the you know what I mean? The most recent scenario is new to me. I'm learning all about it, but it's the city is doing its good due diligence. We're going to have to remove the building, but then we get to go after her personally. Any like cash assets she has, we could put a lien on her own personal house. Obviously, you can't force a sheriff's sale on that because it's her own personal residence. So you have to be able to prove that you can get up to $75,000 or more out of her house, which is the Homestead Act. And then we could go after all of her many other rental properties as well. And so the city will be indemnified for its issues, and you're sending a message and you're hitting her where it hurts. From what I can tell about her business plan is she's one of the very few landlords that provides insurance. And that's a big concern that a lot of people have. So we're having this taken care of. It shouldn't have happened. Fires happen, right? Like hers just happened to be more of, but it's because she's a poor landlord. A piss poor landlord is what I should say, not poor. She's piss poor. As in does a bad job. But I mean, a fire can happen anywhere, right? Like it just, you know what I mean? So like, but every landlord I've talked to, even King Richard, most people know who I'm talking about. King Richard, the last I talked to him about, because he had a fire a few years ago, he does everything in house. He cleans up his own messes in house. He has insurance. I believe he told me he spends $60,000 a year just on his only in properties in insurance. Right? Well, he's bringing it in. He's got enough in properties to charge him $60,000 on it, right? But I don't know any landlord that's worth their salt that isn't charging insurance, does not have insurance on their rental properties, except for Queen Linda. So, with that said, according to a few lawyers I've talked to, including the city attorney, the Constitution only recently made it not unconstitutional to mandate that people have health insurance. It would be prior to that, it was unconstitutional to mandate people have insurance. They have yet to do anything about the category of casualty, liability, and loss insurance other than motor vehicles, because they can regulate your car, because it's not a right. It's a right to own property. It's not a right to own it's a right to own a car, but in order to register your car to be on the road, you need a license, which is a privilege, not a right. In order to rent out your rental property, it's not a right, it's a privilege, right? And so we can't mandate that you have it per se. But what I've brought forward to the Common Council next week's discussion is a discussion item about modifying Chapter 12 of the City Code, which is the rental inspection laws that I introduced a few years ago. What it does is it's going to modify the landlord registration to make it a license, like a contractor would get a license with the city, and at which point, having that business license, the city can mandate you, in order to get that license, you have to provide insurance. Same thing with this. Every landlord who has a rental in the city, this would just be part of their registration. You register, you show your insurance. When your insurance expires, you update it. And you have to name the city as a certificate holder. So if your building burns down in the city, your house, the insurance company's already named you as a beneficiary of it, because and if you take care of it yourself and nobody has to pay for it, or you file a claim directly with the insurance company, the city has no charge against you, right? But this allows for the city to have some kind of repercussion, so we don't have to take people to court and things like that and front the money. I mean, we probably still end up fronting the money in certain cases, but we'd get reimbursed by an insurance company, which is bonded in the state of New York. You know what I mean? They're an entity in which they're not, trying to sue the homeless, right? They're this thing, and that allows for us to do a better job protecting our city. And like I said, I don't know one landlord that is a good landlord that does, because I know that's always the thing. Every time you modify the rental inspection law, or you create anything new, you're just attacking the landlords. What landlord doesn't have insurance? Except for Queen Linda. Like, if you're a landlord and you don't have insurance and your building burns down, are you a moron? Like, that's how I look at it. You got to be some kind of a goddamn moron to not have insurance on your rentals, unless they're so shitty. She pays $10,000 for a house and immediately starts renting it. The landlord inspection law prevents her from renting it now, right? But some of these buildings, like, have already been rented for decades, so it's hard for us to get our foot in the door. And there's going to be some that burn down in the meantime until we inspect every single one of hers, which is going to take some time. But if we can mandate she has insurance, at least there's something to hedge against it. You know what I mean? Hedge against the loss. I mean, there's nothing to ever hedge against the loss of life, but we can at least mitigate. We can mitigate it with the rental inspection once they come due. We can always revisit the rental inspection law. And incorporate it in a different manner as we see fit later. But it's only on its first almost, so it's on its second year now, and it's one of those things. But if we can modify that registration, every landlord's required to register, and it's usually simple. And we ask for insurance if you have it. If we make it a license, we could introduce it at no fee, because that's how we introduce the landlord registration. The only thing you're paying a fee on is an inspection, where you send a guy out to go, or a gal out to go look at your property and make sure it passes an inspection, which is working very well. And that's the only time there would be a fee, is those inspections, right? Where we actually have manpower wasting, we're using city taxpayer dollars to implement this. And there's going to be some costs to, print of paper and stuff like that, but it's such a minimal cost that, we're already doing it with the registration form. If we just had them, added to the fact that you just say, okay, instead of a registration, it's a license, and you register all your properties and then submit insurance for the following in order to get this license. And every year, when it comes time to renew, we verify that you have updated insurance on all your properties. The city's named as a certificate holder, which is certificate of insurance. As a contractor, a customer can say, listen, you're doing work on my house, I want a certificate of insurance from your insurance company. And I could call my insurance company, and they could send me a copy, which I would print off for my customer. It states their name on the insurance form. And then they could call the insurance company. If they're really concerned about it, they can call the insurance company and verify the certificate of insurance is valid. And if something were to happen, they have a direct passage into the account, into that policy. And this is something that I'm bringing up to help mitigate against something like this happening yet again, and to prevent us from the situation we're in. But the situation we're in is not bleak. Everybody on Facebook keeps talking, oh, great, city's holding the bag again. City's holding the bag. Not this time, guys. City's not holding the bag. We're going to punch Linda in her stomach where it hurts, right in her coin purse, and that's all there is to it. She can deal with it, because she should not be putting this burden on us, and she's stupid if she thinks that we are going to take this lying down, But yeah, that's it. I wanted to curb that. If there's any additional questions, I can put out more videos. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Stay tuned for what February's theme is. A little different than last year, and I want to see how everybody's jump into January has been going. So other than that, guys, I will talk to you soon, and see you tomorrow.